Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of y'all and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I'm not doing music this time. Um, Go ahead and hit that share button though, um, because the message is more important than the messenger. Hit it because this is something that I talked about before, but people tend to forget. Press the share button because people need to hear this, and they not only need to hear this, but they need to remember it. And they need to not only remember it, we need to not only remember we have heard me say multiple times the same thing that I'm going to say. The problem is that although we have heard this, um, it's not spreading. It should, but it's not going to spread until people make a conscious decision to take this and share it with somebody else. And if you're not hitting the share button, then it's okay, but you still have to have this conversation with other people. See, sometimes when we're on someone's chat or we're even a guest on the live stream, we make this mistake of thinking, well, somebody said only black people, but I'm not going to disagree with them. And it's one thing if you're just letting them um, finish their sentence, but we need to make a conscious effort to come back and say, well, wait, hold on. Regarding this idea that it's only black people, uh, let me tell you about this other group of people. What's going on? Darknesses. Um, so we hear this all the time. It's just black people that do this. Only black folks uh, did that. Only the black woman talks about the black man so badly. Well, that's almost true. There is a context to which other groups of women say things about their men, but they do. It depends not really on anything other than how well developed their countries are, or by how much of a margin the men outnumber the women. That's really what determines it. See, in China, because the men outnumber the women, Chinese women, and also because China's economy improves bit by bit. I mean, China becomes, let's say it becomes less poor than it used to be each month. And that's good for them. Okay, fine. Here's the problem though. So you've got an improving economy, rising power, and men that outnumber women. Now, the men may not want what they call, I think the name was feng shui, if I'm not mistaken, the leftovers. They may not want the leftover women, but the fact remains that the Chinese men still outnumber the women, especially when the women are young. So what do the women have? They got an attitude. They're very materialistic. They'll tell you only rich men, only rich men. They'll talk like this. I mean, of course, there'll be leftover, but they'll say only rich men. We think that they're just normally demure and submissive and sweet and just so obedient. I have a student, former student. He's not a student now, but he's a former student. He studied, when I taught middle school, he was one of my middle school students in the United States, in Atlanta, at a Muslim school. This student went on to graduate from high school, then to graduate from undergrad, and he's a grad student now. This student should have been on the straight and narrow, but his parents cheated on each other. They had one of those dysfunctional marriages. They come from the old country. Both of his parents immigrated into the United States from a conservative Muslim country. After a while in the States, they cheated on each other. Now, one cheated first, the other one cheated in retaliation. This broke something in him. He went to grad school up to fuck. Academically sound, great, very sharp, but personally screwed up. He called me to talk about it. He called me to tell me, Black, when you were telling us in middle school about what was out there after what was going to wait on us from after middle school, when you told us in the classroom to get our minds ready for the days that we graduated from middle school and what the rest of the world was going to be like when we left this cocoon that our parents put us in. I thank you for that. But we didn't take your advice, and now this is what's going on. His situation was mild. He had a Chinese girlfriend who had a boyfriend back home in China. He was living without being married to his Chinese non-Muslim girlfriend while she had that boyfriend back in China. He called her on some app. I guess he used a VPN and reached out to her on Facebook. Some app, some way he was able to make one of those international calls to her. But she had left that phone at home. She was using another one. My former student knew she was cheating on him, and the boyfriend in China knew that she was cheating on him. So he answered the phone, not knowing who it was. He thought maybe it was one of her family members. And he was pretty much going to say, yeah, I'm her boyfriend. We live together. I've been destroying her rectum. He was pretty much going to say this because of stuff that she had done to him, ruining his car. Ain't nobody black in the picture unless you count Bangladeshis as black. Now, if you count Bangladeshis as black, put a black power fist in the chat. It's 14 of you listening. So if you don't put one, then you obviously don't count them as black. But if you do, put a black power fist in the chat. A Chinese woman wasn't black. All manner of dysfunction. So he answered the phone. Chinese boyfriend was like, oh, are you the guy she's cheating on me with? In good English. And he said, cheating on you. Wait a minute. I knew she was cheating on me, but you calling from China. The guy said, yeah, I'm her boyfriend. Oh, man. Did she tell you she lives with me? No. He was the former student of mine that was living with her while she was studying in the United States called me to tell me not only about this situation in which he was, but to tell me also that the other students whom I used to teach in that class in this Muslim school in Atlanta had gone even more wayward than him. He pointed out one student whose parents were from Pakistan. He said that guy is very active in the Muslim student organizations and association. He was in grad school and now, in undergrad, and now in grad school, he's a good guy, except for one thing: he fornicates. And he's the one that's doing the best out of all of us. This guy told me that the lady students from that class, just from his grade, not the other grades in middle school, but from his grade at the time I taught him, had become part of that LGBT. They were in the L part underneath that L alphabet. Dyed pink hair, opened up little art shops, stuff like that. He told me about one guy in the grade below him. The guy in the grade below him is the grandson of the one that gave me my shahada when I decided to tell the Muslims that I was Muslim. I wasn't scared to tell black folk I was Muslim and scared to tell Christians I was Muslim when I first became Muslim. I just didn't know what to expect telling a bunch of non-black Muslims, hey, look, I'm Muslim. I believe in the revelation. So for about 2 weeks, I didn't tell them. When I finally did, there was an older man, a doctor, gave me my shahada on a Friday. Years later, I went to teach at a Muslim school. His grandson was in my class. Fast forward to today, that grandson is doing drugs in Atlanta and selling his butt to dudes. He'd been missing from his family now for probably 2.5 years. Can you imagine? So let me go ahead and give thanks right now. My app does not make a sound. My Cash App is not making any noise because it's late over here. But I can see that Mr. Milton came through. I thank you from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. And I want to thank MLR and BGS and C. Coleman for the ones that came through before. Look, I haven't even gotten started on the minorities I wanted to tell you about yet. The one that's selling his rear is of no black ancestry. He's a combination of white American and Pakistani. No black ancestry that we know of. So, all right. So, Assalamu alaikum, Abdul Malik. Now, if there's anybody in here from the Gulf Coast like me, please be sure to represent so that we can start making this way the East Coast and the Gulf Coast can start making jokes about each other. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. I don't plan on doing that. Not this live stream, at least. Hope you're doing okay, Abdul Malik. Good to see you. So, this being said, nobody black is in here, is in this dysfunction that I'm mentioning now. Now, some of the black students who were both from the States and from Africa did become somewhat liberal. But stuff like this, no. Dyeing their hair purple and opening up really left-wing, artsy L type underneath the alphabet agenda art shops. No, they didn't do that. Out there doing drugs and selling their rear end to dudes. No, they didn't do that. And that's because, and you can ask the Features about this. The Features is another YouTuber in Canada. I think he's in Toronto. You can ask him about it. When African Americans that are Muslim have their kids start their families, we tell our kids what to expect from the majority society. When these others have their kids and they want to integrate, they don't tell them because they don't fully know what it's like to be surrounded by them. They come from countries that have colonized them, but they don't know what it's like to be surrounded by their cousins, by their colonizers' cousins, or their cousins' colonizers for that matter. What is it like when you're surrounded by them? When you're in a land that they have not only colonized, but effectively taken over, outnumbered the original inhabitants. Then what's that like? They don't know. And so they don't tell the kids. And so the kids looked at me and said, okay, yeah, okay, enough with all of that, what we need to do to protect ourselves. Just, why don't you tell us some of the raps you wrote back in high school, back when Tupac was alive? You know, dumb stuff like that. Well, Mr. Mind, did you learn how to dance when you were growing up? Did you ever break dance? You know, dumb stuff like that. You would see their dysfunction. The reason I came on to talk to you about this is because I actually wanted you all to know about something else. Number one, when the U.S. went and sent VP Kamala Harris to tropical Africa to try to talk people into going for an aid package on the condition that they accepted the alphabet agenda. They didn't go to the Middle East, and many of you may be wondering, well, why didn't they? And Phil Scott and some of his staff members did talk about this. We black folks think that the reason they didn't go to the Middle East with this is because the Middle Eastern leaders don't betray their people, and they're going to put their foot down, and they're not going to allow this mess because they're Middle Eastern and they're Muslim and it's against their religion. This is what we think. There was a time I would have thought so. There was a time I didn't know any better. My idea was the same idea. Now you want to know what's really going on? What's really going on is that here in the Middle East, the population does not think it's okay So you're not going to come talking about their rights. That's a conversation they're not going to have. Number one, they're not going to sit up here and get into a discussion about their rights. Here, the people are going to say, if someone does it, we would never know about it. So their rights are protected because nobody knows what they did in private anyway. So we're not going to have this discussion. You're not going to come and promote this stuff here. To that extent, they will put the foot down. But the other reason is because here in the Middle East, everyone knows that it's a fact of life, that somebody's going to do it somewhere. And everyone knows that the reason that someone's going to do it somewhere is because marriage is difficult. It's hard to get some trim in these countries. And it ain't completely easy for these women to get the bamboo. Of course, it's easier than it is for a dude to get some trim, but the women don't have an easy time getting the bamboo if that's what they want. If the sound begins to cut lower, it sounds like I'm cutting out somebody, please let me know. Salute to KP. All right, this is good. 22 are now watching. So since 22 are watching, could you knuckleheads please go ahead and hit the share button too? Those of you that are now watching. And to those that hit the share button, I thank you, and I mean that. I thank you from the bottom of my black heart. Here in the Middle East, they don't necessarily think, well, it's okay that this kind of thing goes on, but they do think, yeah, I mean, this is the type of thing that's going to happen because marriage isn't easy and you got these young people and what did you expect? So to that extent, that's there. They don't say that it's okay. They just say it's bound to happen. But there's more. In tropical Africa, from whence we cometh, it's not even accepted as some sort of fact of life that's going to be there. They are not desensitized to that. In the Middle East, they don't like it, but they are desensitized. They're not shocked by its existence. In tropical Africa, they still are shocked by its existence. They're like, we don't even know for what reason. Why? How does that work? We don't even get it. Where does that come from? For what? In tropical Africa, they're looking like that. It just doesn't make any sense. No, they're sick. That's what you're looking at over in tropical Africa. We think, okay, you got these corrupt leaders. They'll just, they'll bend and bow and they'll just let anyone come with anything and talk to them. And, what really happens is not quite that. What really happens there is that while you have leaders in Africa that will bend to the wrong things or they will succumb to the wrong types of pressure, the fact still remains that in tropical Africa, that is one thing about which they have not. The Liberian president, former president, Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, who hasn't been in office in years, said, hell no, that won't go. She told a reporter this. She wasn't shy to say it. Museveni was like, nah, It wasn't just them. That was one thing about which they were going to tell anyone, even the West, nope, no, thank you. And that actually accelerated some African nations deciding to go ahead and seek out BRICS membership. Ethiopia does not play that mess. It might exist, but they don't play that mess. In some of these countries 20 years ago, you could get someone done away with by telling a cop, man, so-and-so's trying to test me out like that, trying to flirt. Obviously, I ain't no woman. What's going on here? Cops would take care of that. And one of the reasons they would do it off the books is so that the government would not come under pressure from the states later on to let this kind of stuff slide. That's what was going on. So when U.S. VP Harris toured tropical Africa with this stuff and didn't go to the Middle East, it wasn't only because of what we think, well, you know, the African leaders will listen, but the Middle Easterners will say, no, get on the plane and go. That's not what it was. It's because their agenda was to desensitize some people to this, to get the discussion going. That's already done here. Now, they won't discuss their rights per se, but people here are desensitized to it, whereas they're not in tropical Africa. So this was more of a desensitization mission. Maybe VP Harris didn't know that that's what it was, but I can guarantee you Shaitan knew. Walaikum salam, features I just got through mentioning you earlier. So definitely the devil knew. There was someone that can give orders that go to VP Harris and even to Biden. Even if they don't know this is from whence the orders cometh, someone that could give that order, and they knew what this was. You go into North Africa and the Middle East, they may not want to have a conversation with you about this stuff, but they know it's there. Elementary schools got a problem. Elementary schools, because there are teachers who are attracted to that field because they're already sick. And people here don't want to confront it as a whole, but there are individuals that would tell you, we're not going to confront this in mass, but we know it's there and we know it's wrong. So they're not shocked. They don't like it, but they're not shocked. In high schools, the students have told me, male students of mine told me high schools are like prison, except you don't have to stay overnight. But while you're there in the high school, you may need protection from older and bigger dudes, from other older and bigger dudes. You may have to seek out protection because you don't have to be a coward in order to get violated. You could just be smaller and get caught alone. That's all. That's all the hell it takes. So when I started to hear this from some of my students, I thought, well, dang. I mean, why isn't there a campaign to actively collect evidence and proof on such people and turn them over so that they can get decapitated and be a deterrent for others? What's going on? Nobody wants to sit up and go through something like that. As much as they hate this sort of thing, you know what else they hate more than that? You want to talk about dysfunction and act like we're the only dysfunctional people? Guess what else they hate even more than folks that violate rules like this? They hate snitches. That's why cheating went on for so long. And that brings me to my next point. Cheating went unobstructed in this kingdom for so long because as much as they hated that, people didn't want to snitch, even religious folks. So academic standards were pretty much a mockery. And the effects of that are still being felt today. You just now have more of the citizens entering the workforce for jobs they previously would have turned down. And they have a better academic attitude towards the training necessary to go into these jobs and do these jobs correctly. They have a better attitude now. But I got students that because they're older, they graduated before the major shift occurred about 3 to 4 years ago. They graduated high school before that. So they still are sitting in my classroom thinking cheating is no big deal. Oh, it's not really cheating. It's help. It's the young ones that turn to them and say, no, see, you want that BS. I had a fluent student, a lady student, Black Saudi, sister, from one of the southernmost cities in the south of the kingdom. Sister sit up and tell me, you know, Professor Mind, I didn't know why you were so against cheating. Like, why is it such a big deal? I cheated in school. And I told her, yeah, and you were a sack of shit when you did it. And she said, well, yeah, I know that now. But when you first started, I didn't know why it was such a big deal until you told me that no other country allows it to this extent. And I said, yeah, they don't. But see, we would have thought that you all would have been the strictest about cheating. No, come here, find out that this society at that time, the country was the most lenient. Now it's strict. They're getting there. But see, not liking snitches, making a joke about booty banditry and violating other members of the same gender. You know, yeah, that's what you get. stuff like that. Does that sound familiar? We thought it was just us. And most people here don't do stuff like that. They're just not shocked by it when they hear about it. I mean, if a kid turns up missing, and this is a safe country, people here don't like to steal stuff from other people. But if a kid turns out missing for a while, they fear the worst. And one of the reasons they fear it is because the laws are not what they used to be here. Used to be you did something like that and the kid survived, but they could prove it was you, you were going to get decapitated. Now, if the kid survives, you're going to go behind bars for a while, do the same thing as somebody behind bars. And the thing too is this, in tropical Africa, if nobody who's into that can sit up and brag to somebody else about being into that. I mean, even if you're part of a criminal gang, you can't brag about you got a victim of one of your crimes like that and the victim was underage. You can't. Other gangsters will be like, oh, wait, you that sick? They'll tie your arms up, throw a tie around you, throw gasoline on you, light you up because you nasty. But see, over here, if you say something about doing something like that in front of a cop, well, yeah, it's over for you. If you say something about doing something like that in front of a judge, yeah, it's over for you. But if you're just sitting with some of your boys, you could be at a restaurant sitting with your boys and you could crack jokes about what you did to some boy younger than you. They got terms for it. They don't have terms like that in many parts of the home continent, the tropical parts at least. There's a vocabulary for it here. That's why Harris didn't need to go to those countries and talk about that. And you thought that it's just because Africa's so pitiful and the leaders are just so pathetic and everybody else that ain't us is so together. One more thing I'm going to talk about, then it's time to go. Let me check the cash right quick. Yep. Okay. Green Company. Yes. Thank you so much for the Green Consortium. Thank you again from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I mean that. I really appreciate that. Y'all coming through today. And you know, I usually ask that most of you come through, like it's 23 of you. I usually ask that most of you come through with 1 to 5 because it's really the sound that inspires me more than anything. But those of you that have been coming through, y'all have been coming through with very generously. And I'm pleasantly surprised in that regard. And what you all send will go to the non-monthly expenses for the center that I opened up in another country. Some expenses are not monthly, such as some of the cleaning and the non-routine maintenance, like fixing up the. Thank you so much, Jay Cleveland Green. Things like repairing the AC because the AC units are new. The business used to belong to somebody else before. So salute no one. What's going on? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, Bilal. I hope everything's okay. Now, there's one more thing I needed to talk about and tell y'all about. On, I think it's the Phil show, Phil Scott, or it's the African Diaspora News Channel, because both channels belong to him. There was an Asian American, and this is important because he outed Asian Americans for cheating in order to get high test scores. What was important to notice is that Asian American at no point identified himself by his nationality. That's how you know he was really Asian American. His Asian, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Red Lion. Thank you so much, Bilal, for that compliment. And I'm hoping that I'm able to teach even more. And that's why I say it's important that this information is shared. And if it's not in the form of hitting the share button, which is okay, maybe somebody will be bored listening to me for a half hour or 45 minutes. But if it's not going to be in the form of the share button, then it's still as important that that we spread this by word of mouth. So even if you don't hit the share button, then what we need to do is start saying word of mouth, staying by word of mouth. This is what we need to know. So when you're on these live streams or when you're in someone's panel or in the chat and someone says only black folk, that's when we got to start typing in the correction or speaking the correction if we're on the panel and say, well, actually, it's not only black folk, but we're talking about ourselves. But let's not say it's only us, because when you get around these folks from other groups and you let them talk and tell on themselves, oh no, they got it too. And I'm gonna say this about this guy. See, obviously he is Asian American because his race trumped his parents' national identity. And he said that Asian Americans, that means he's not singling out the Koreans or the Vietnamese or the Chinese. He was saying Asian, and we know that they don't generally include the Southeast Asians, who are not a very large number in many parts of the United States anyway, nor are they included as part of that model minority myth. So we know that he's not discussing them. He's talking about the ones considered to be the model minority, and the model minority is the Koreans, the Chinese, the Vietnamese, maybe the Japanese, although they're not in large numbers outside of Hawaii and San Francisco and Sacramento. Do you see where this is going? This man said they cheat. We are looking at groups of people who we think have their stuff together, and you find out that cheating is a major issue. Now, China has a cheating problem inside of its country, and this is known. They've had a cheating problem going back more than 9 years. Around the time I left the States, they already had it. In India, they have a cheating problem in middle and high schools. There's a photograph of parents having climbed up the side of a building to sneakily give their kids answers to the test through the window, climbing up to the second and third story so they can whisper answers to the kids during the test because they're under that much pressure. What is the attitude that most of us have about cheating? We don't even think of academic pursuit as being important enough to cheat. Oh, that's not all. Let me tell you all a story going back to the 1990s. 97 or 98, I believe. At Morehouse, and you know Morehouse is a school for black males. We had a few non-black male students. They were from India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. We had one from Bangladesh. If any of you went to Morehouse in the late 90s, you may even know who I'm talking about. And if you do not put his name in the chat. Mr. Green, thank you so much for the second one. And I mean that. Thank you so much. Brandon, Mr. Green came through twice. J. Cleveland Green came through 2 times. And generously. If I could feel embarrassment, I would feel shame because of the generosity. I really appreciate that. And yeah, that's going to go towards the AC repair because that amount in US, when you convert it, it covers a major portion of the repair of the unit in one of the rooms. The units are already there from before, but it's the repair since they haven't been used in a while. Some of them haven't. And it's hot there too right now. So take a look at this. To answer your question, Abdul Malik, I did think about it. I considered it. But he doesn't know me. In all honesty, he doesn't know who I am. I don't even blame him. He's been in this too long, and too many people know him. I would not expect Phil to know who I am. Um, sorry, y'all. I had pizza earlier from Domino's, and then later on I had some chips and salsa. About an hour later as a snack, and so sometimes it gets to my throat. I'm not doing that anymore. So India's got a cheating problem, but if you look at how we are about cheating, when I was at Morehouse, now mind you, at my high school, which was all black, they thought cheating was funny, but nobody wanted to be stupid though. Um, when I went to Morehouse, and I was about towards the end of my matriculation, I was close to it. All of the brothers in this one finance or econ class, one of the two, got to the class, and we all huddled on one side of the room. It was not because we wanted to cheat. We all huddled on one side of the room because we were trying to not sit in one particular place that we knew that this kid from Bangladesh was going to sit. Now, mind you, this is Morehouse. One student from Bangladesh, he was more trifling than anybody else there. He was trifling with a capital K. Trifling. Walaikum salam, Charles Irby. Trifling with an exclamation mark at the end. Dude had black fingernails because that's how much weed he smoked. Now, he had his hair really long down his back. He'd walk around campus playing a guitar, stuff like that. And he would openly tell the other students from India and Pakistan that he had had girlfriends who had abortions back when he was a rock star. And he was digging them out, and he liked the skin to skin feeling, when all right, sorry about that. Now, how was the sound at this point? Does the sound still bad? Okay, got an idea. I'm going to use a different mic. All right. I'm going to use, let me change out this wire. This might make a difference. All right. How about now? Okay. All right. Alan Stranger says, and my voice is coming through. Now I'm still going to change out a wire uh, if I can. I used a hotspot, but I kind of wish I hadn't. Um, but in any case, I'm going to switch to a hard wire now because I don't do patience. And I will smash this machine if I lose connection one more time. This only happens when I'm going live, by the way. There's never anything else that causes this. All right. Okay, I'm switching to the hard connection shortly. Okay, let's see if that changes. Okay, is the sound clearer now or is it the same as before? Okay, I'm showing a warning from StreamYard that the connection is unstable. But this continues, I'm going to look for another service and not StreamYard because now I'm convinced that it's StreamYard. And at this point, I'm using hotspot and a cable. So I shouldn't have that. And if it's going to be that way, then I'll use somebody else's instead of utilizing StreamYard. I don't care what StreamYard's reasons are. I don't give a rat's behind. There's no excuse they can give me that I would accept at this point. Nobody else seems to have that problem. And I don't run into this at any other time. So the last thing I was mentioning was that this guy from Bangladesh he had a rock band back at home when he was in Bangladesh. And so he had groupies and, he knocked some of them up and get them pregnant, or at least they would say so. And then he'd get these abortions. And the students from India and Pakistan pretty much said, that's even against our values. These types of things might happen, but we don't say that it's okay. It's not normal. He talks about it like it's another meal. And he was really trifling, really was. I mean, this guy came to me one day, hey man, look, I need to borrow your textbook. Borrow my textbook. I needed to do the same homework you're trying to do. Yeah, but man, I really need it. And I said, why don't you go to the bookstore and get it? Because I spent my money on weed. Oh, well, whose fault is that, dummy? He was like that. This is how this guy was. Wasn't a black student like this boy at all. They weren't there. If you had a black student like him, they didn't make it past freshman year. We think it's just us. No, it's not. And this guy was in Morehouse. So on the day of a final exam for finance or econ class, we were huddled up together, mainly to keep a distance from him. One guy went and took all the desks in a row and put them in the hallway so that boy would have to sit by himself because we didn't want him sitting by us. We took the exam. We were rushing through because we didn't want him to show up and ask us for exam questions. You know what happened? When we finished the exam and I walked outside the building, I saw him by the cafeteria and I called out to him. I said, hey man, are you going to take the final exam or did you take it early? What final? The one for Mr. So-and-so's class. Oh, that was today? Yeah, dummy, we just finished it. You better go meet up with him. It was bad, man. The cheating is not a joke. We don't think that the cheating is as common as it is. No, it's common. All this time we've been walking around thinking we're the only ones that have these issues. No, cat from Bangladesh. And if you want to know more about how trifling this dude was, guess what else? Oh, I ain't done yet. Later on, after I became Muslim, I saw this guy in the mosque during Ramadan. For months, I had not seen this guy. Then I see him in the mosque during Ramadan. So he was a Ramadan Muslim. We know about them. You can ask any African American about a Ramadan Muslim. You only see them in the mosque around Ramadan. They may not even pray any other time of year. He was breaking his fast with the rest of us. I said, hey, what's up, man? He still had the long hair. I said, look, man, I thought you were going to go back after you graduated, back to your country. He had married a white American chick probably just to stay in the country. He was a rock star back home. He shouldn't have minded going back, but I guess he likes winter. So he went to he went through it, because when I became Muslim, it was already after 9/11. It was about 2000, maybe 2003 when I saw him. And so by that point, he had really gone through the ringer. Married a white American woman, got pulled off a train by the FBI because they were picking up anybody that fit his description. And dude was so ignorant about his own religion. He didn't know the difference between the Muslims. You're going to understand this. You know what I mean when I say this. He didn't know the difference between jihad and jahiliyyah. He thought he got the two mixed up. Oh, he BS'd his way through presentations that he was supposed to give in class. We all looked at this guy like, do his parents know that he's this trifling? But they were back home. So when I saw him at the mosque years later, here he was, still ignorant. So he asked me, well, since you're Muslim now, what's your Muslim name? And I gave him my same government name that I had back in college. I said, that's my Muslim name. He said, you can't keep that name. Why the hell not? And this guy said, you can have any name except a Western name. I asked him to show me the proof of that. Where did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam or any prophet say you can have what's Western? I asked him that. He said, I'll look it up, get back to dude was that dumb. Now I think he's shaped up since then, maybe a little bit. So I don't assume that he's the same person now that he was then, but back then that's how he was. He was the dysfunctional one. It was him, wasn't us. We think that, and a lot of us, even those of us that are red pill aware and are conscious and are not just, I wouldn't say just walking around asleep, but we don't think we are. Many of us still think that we are the definition of dysfunction as a race. Outside the continent, in the continent, in the other diaspora nations, we think we're the epitome of dysfunction, when in fact, dysfunction's everywhere. But the other groups of people to whom we look up, that we think are not dysfunctional, are actually handpicked when you're looking at the United States and Canada. And I've told you about this before. See, for one, they got to show bank statements, in most cases, to get a visa to live in the US. Secondly, after they show these bank statements and go through everything to get the visa, then there's more. They get a follow-up appointment at the US Embassy or consulate through which they applied. At the follow-up appointment, they are given a type of orientation. At the follow-up appointment, they are told to watch out for not only Black folks in our neighborhoods, but also Latin Americans and their neighborhoods. This is what they're told. So, as quiet as is kept, you may not know this, but the Chinese person that is handpicked to be given a visa to go to the United States has not only been told to watch out for us, but has been told also to watch out for Latin Americans. The Tunisian has been told to watch out for not only us, but also the Mexicans. And they are filtered for the level of consciousness. I've met Black conscious, light-skinned North Africans here. One of my students is half Algerian. His citizenship is Saudi, but his mother is an Algerian citizen, and his dad is an Algerian Saudi. He's from Medina. So that means his parents came here to Saudi before their revolution against the French before the time of Malcolm X. This guy has inherited Black consciousness and anti-colonialism from before that point. Algerians are not a bunch of dark-skin hating Arabs, but you're not going to know that if you don't go there. Now, there are quite a few of them in France. Malcolm X's daughter was dating one for a while. I'm not saying that as a matter, question of pride. I'm just saying that that's their mindset. I met some Algerians here, and they were quite conscious, fists in the air, anti-colonization, anti-brainwashing. They woke for real. But they're not getting no visas to go to the US, and they know they're not. The rest of the world is not the way we think it is right off the bat, and everybody else is not the way that we think they are right off the bat. People are not walking around in their home countries hating us on one hand. On the other hand, the men usually don't want sisters. That's true. They don't walk around hating sisters either. They just don't want them. And that does put sisters at a disadvantage when it comes down to them trying to date out or marry out, like Edward Allen Anderson, Hurricane Edward, would tell them to do. And I'm glad he tells them this. But the thing is that oftentimes sisters will try to give us a bad view of the rest of the world because they know that other men don't want to marry them. So just because of that, just because they're viewed as not being as beautiful as other women, once they leave and go elsewhere, they want to give us a bad view of the rest of the world. And they have a bad view of the rest of the world too. A lot of what sisters say, they believe. That's another thing. So, but you're not going to meet these conscious fist in the air Algerians sitting in the US. That's not where they're going. You won't find them there. Hell, you barely meet an Algerian there. You ever know? How many of you have met an Algerian in the United States? You might meet a Tunisian, and they can be pretty conscious too. You may meet a Moroccan. But how many of you have met an Algerian in the US? There's a reason for that. Now, how many of you have met an Egyptian in the United States? I can tell you that orientation does not require much. I mean, that's probably a very quick orientation for them. When you're dealing with Egyptians in the United States, you'll find plenty of them. I don't even know if they require that orientation. But the thing is that you'll find this out when you get to live abroad. You can find some of this out by just talking to the people that come from these areas. But some of the information you can find out while living abroad, but you have to actually befriend people from these other backgrounds and be willing to listen instead of doing all the talking. You'll have to be willing to do that. That's hard. And then like an intelligence gathering, you'll have to be willing to do it. And then not only that, you may have to spend time abroad too and ask them. And then you begin to see what the patterns are. And when you go abroad, you will then see the dysfunction that you're not going to see in the States. Did you know that in this country, they don't even trust Egyptians? I mentioned this to you all before. In this country, now the government is hiring more doctors from Nigeria because they believe that they can get doctors, like real authentic doctors. They look at the Egyptians and they say, well, we don't know which ones faked their degrees and which ones didn't because they have such a forgery industry in Egypt that they don't even have in Nigeria, that we'll just go ahead and stop hiring any new Egyptians. The ones we got can keep the jobs, but for new doctors, we'll just hire from Nigeria, doctors and nurses, because at the very least, we know they have these degrees. So while the rest of us are looking at Nigerians sideways because of the emails that we get, cats in Saudi are like, well, when it comes to doctors and nurses, let's go ahead and give them a shot. because those degrees are validated. We can prove they've got those. We can trust their degrees when it comes to medicine. And so now they're phasing out the Egyptian healthcare providers with Nigerians. You wouldn't know that in the States. I didn't know that they were thought of as being so low down. The Egyptians, I mean, thought of as being so low down and untrustworthy. I didn't know that till I got here. And then I saw why. I remember one time going to a clinic. This was back in 2016. Man, I was sick. I'm talking, I thought I was going to die that day. And after I was able to, after I got a bit better and I was therefore able to talk, and so I could ask someone to take me to the clinic, he took me to the clinic. I tried to ask them, listen, I'm just trying to figure out if I had anything in if y'all can find any infection in my blood or anything. They didn't do any of that. They just tried to put me on an IV. Then they wanted to give me a shot. So I said, hold up. A shot? For what? So, hold on, Burantashi. What is that? Assalamu alaikum, based Muslim. Can you tell us what Burantashi is? So in any case, they sent the nurse from the Philippines with an injection with a needle to tell me that she was going to give me the shot in my rear end. And I was like, man, before I pull my pants off, so you can put the shot, did they tell you what it is? And she knew what the deal was. She was just doing a job. But she looked down and she shook her head and she said, they didn't tell me. They told me it's for you, but they didn't tell me what it is. And I said, ma'am, did they tell you why I'm here? And she said, well, they told me that you needed the this IV. I was like, yeah, okay. You know what, ma'am? Thank you. I'm going to take the IV out and I'm leaving. Because they didn't tell you what the shot is and they didn't tell you why I'm here. So thank you. But so while I was waiting to pay the bill for the little IV drip that they did give me and no other treatment, this doctor approached me. He was from Egypt. Doctor approached me and was like, are you from the United States? Because I had to show my ID card. And I said, yes, I'm going back to visit soon. And I wanted to know why he wanted to know that. And so then he said, well, when you're in the US, can you bring me a pair of shoes size 15? Turns out this dude, I looked down like, why the hell would, oh, damn. Yeah, he does have some big feet. That's what this dude wanted to ask me. I just called him out for not treating me adequately and was walking out after I paid the bill. And that's what this dude asked me. And I wasn't very nice in my answer. I was like, not really, because I'm not going to have any room to pack a pair of shoes and the box. And I told him, I said, now, for the price of another bag and the checking of that bag through the airlines, yeah, sure. So let's see, that's going to be the shoes, size 15. That might be about 200 US. And then a bag, I'm not sure what that's going to cost, but I'll get one of those here. So we'll say about 130 reals. And then checking the bag on, and that's 40 US. So if you can cover all of that, yeah, sure, I'll get it. There was like, khalas, thank you, brother. No, brother, yeah, brother. Thank you, brother. That's the kind of professionalism that they've been showing, and they're known for this. So the good doctors from Egypt are getting a bad reputation. Man, the nation's dysfunctional. I spent 8 hours in Egypt because a plane, an airline screwed up. 8 hours. And it was one of the most miserable nights I ever spent. You think that it's just us that are dysfunctional, bruh. That happened in 2015. The flight was supposed to go from Morocco through Cairo to Riyadh. That's what was supposed to happen. But the plane was late leaving Morocco by 6 hours. So I missed the connection to Riyadh. So I had to go through all this BS and rigmarole to get the hotel room I was supposed to get anyway. And then the next day, I asked, well, what time is it? Because the bus is supposed to take us to the airport. Do you know that it was 2 times in one city? How can one city be in 2 time zones? Somebody going to tell me, well, it depends on what you're trying to do. I said, okay, so what time is the airport on? Oh, don't worry, the bus will be on time. I was looking at my watch like on time would have been an hour ago. Now, we did make the flight. That's true. And had to bribe somebody in the security checkpoint to let me go. It was a mess. Absolute mess. That's what Egypt is. I didn't have to go through all of those problems when I went to South Africa. My wife's in another East African country now. She said it's great. They haven't given her trouble. Turkish Airlines gave her a whole lot of trouble. She finally got a refund from them and went on Oman Airlines. And now she said everything was great there. And she's now in East Africa. I won't say which nation yet, but it's fine. But you thought it was just us, huh? You thought we were the only ones that were dysfunctional? That's what y'all thought? Most of you in my audience have heard me say this before. So this is not completely new to you, but what I want you to do is to please share the information. If it's a link and you don't want to explain it, or if you want to put the same information in your own words, tell this to somebody. Because one of the major things that sets us back, even those of us that are religiously aware or red pill aware, is our idea that we're the most dysfunctional, that everybody's together but us. Oh, no. No, indeed. I'd say we tend to go back and forth as a people. You start looking at some other groups of people and no. It ain't like that. So looking at some of them, you think they're going to have all their stuff together. Not really. They don't. Saudi Airlines. You know that I almost never, ever get on time where I'm going when I fly with Saudi Airlines. We almost never leave on time nor arrive on time when I'm on Saudi Airlines. Fly us a little bit late. The train leaves on time. I've been on a train system several times. The train is on time, but the flight's always something. So if you have to catch a domestic flight to catch an international flight, because the international flights, they are better about that. If you have to catch a domestic flight to try to catch an international flight, oh, you just screwed. They don't care. And that's how bad it is. These Bedouins don't feel a gut, bruh. But you think everybody else is on top of their stuff. Exactly, Trail Bentley. It ain't just Saudi people time either. It's that too. But Arab people time. Arabs are not on time for stuff. They joke about how late they are. Oh, in a wedding? Forget that. Now, see, in my case, tomorrow's Saturday. So it's Friday night here. I know it's afternoon there, but it's Friday night here. It's almost 11 p.m. I'm going to get 4 hours of sleep because I can sleep again in the morning. I can sleep through the morning here. That's fine. I can do that. But on the night when I got to work, so I have to get up for Fajr prayer. On the night when I have to work, I try to be in bed early. You know, I have to turn my phone off after the sun goes down. Not everything, but I have to turn the ringer off after the sun goes down because that's when people start calling and making plans. It's like people are asleep all day. That's what it feels like. And then at night, when you need to be getting to sleep so you can be ready for work the next day, phone starts ringing. This, that, and the other. No joke. People here, they don't go to bed early. So they don't really get up early. They get up early to pray, and then they go back to sleep, try to get a little bit of nap, and then a lot of them are late. My 8 o'clock class, man, I stopped going to my 8 o'clock class on time. I'm in the building. I just sit in the computer lab across the hall from my 8 o'clock class and just watch. Okay, there are 3 students in there. I'm going to wait until 6 go in. Okay, now I'll go to class because they late. I go greet them. I'll greet the early students and tell them, yes, I'm here. Then I go sit in the computer lab because they're late. And we think it's just us. No. A lot of our students in the academy where I'm teaching now, a lot of students have been absent. All last week, a lot of them were absent. Administration started going from class to class to take attendance in addition to me taking attendance. They started taking, okay, what are the names of the absent ones and how many of y'all are here? Okay, cool. You think that these other people that aren't black give their word, they give their promise, and they keep it? Assalamu alaikum, Jaws. What's good, Detroit? No, let me tell you, the academy that I'm working in, man, what's happening, LOM? Salute. The academy in which I'm working, let me tell you what they did. They said that they were only going to take students who had some foundation in English. You didn't have to be fluent, but they said you got to have some foundation. And that's fair. Should be, right? Some foundation in English. Well, a bunch of students failed the initial entry interviews. The interviews were given in English, and it was 3 of them. So they were supposed to pass 3 interviews in English. Some of the students were not even interviewed 3 times. They were given 1. They failed the English part, so they were given another one, failed that, and then they were allowed into the program. They were supposed to have failed from the first one and not been let in. And some other students, some other applicants could have then been interviewed, and they could have been let in if their English was better. There are students who are not supposed to be finished with high school. Now, I will admit, the academy did say you got to have a high school diploma, and they meant that. They did check that, and they verified the diplomas too. No fake diplomas. That they did do. But if you have to pass English exams to get out of high school in this country, how the hell are you getting a bunch of people with verified high school diplomas and not a sentence of English? Because we were not supposed to start teaching English from A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. We were not supposed to start there. And I'm going to tell you this. When you're an English teacher, you'll learn this. You can't start somebody off in your language with no foundation unless you're using their language to explain your language. So in other words, for me to take a student that speaks no sentence of English at all, I have to use Arabic to explain English to get them started. Well, the only Arabic I can use to get them started is classical Arabic. Fosa, the formal Arabic, Arabic of the scriptures. I can't use their slang to get them started. Most of them don't even know the formal Arabic. What the F am I supposed to do now? Now we're just sitting up blinking at each other. And I've walked out of classrooms because I've had situations in which I've walked into classrooms and every student was at that level. Oh, okay, so can one of you understand the following sentence? Is this your class? They're looking at each other. Somebody asking Arabic, what did he say? All the rest are like, I don't know, just say yes. Okay, dummies, I'm out. And I've gone to administration before and said, what the F, man? A whole class and not one of them has a foundation. And I'm not allowed to use Arabic to explain English. Most employers don't even know that I can. I've dealt with this before. At the academy, I don't have any whole class like that, but I got students like that in a few classes. And they're not supposed to be in there. They don't have to be fluent when they come in. They just have to have a foundation. They have no foundation, and they're sitting in that classroom looking at me. They're in the program. This is routine. This is common. This is more often than not. I've been told, don't use Arabic in the class. Yeah, I know. I tell my employers I don't speak it. And my job, I pretend like I don't speak it. Like I don't know anything. That's how I do with my job. I pretend like I only know a few words, but not any sentence. And sometimes I'll say a word and they don't understand it. And I'm like, see, that's why I use English. Okay, go look up the translation. I'm not trying to translate it anymore. Doctor, I didn't understand. Yeah, but that's your fault because I just said the word in Arabic. So if you didn't understand it, that means you don't know your own language. Go look it up. I'm not going to try to pronounce it again and again for you to figure it out. It's not my job. Look up the English translation to find out what it means. Here's the spelling in English. So that's how I have to do it. And then when I tell I tell some of the students that they need to go and practice at home and catch up with the others. And they don't do it. One day, one of the administrators came into my worst class, absolute worst class. One of the administrators came in, started talking to them in Arabic. Mind you, he didn't know that I knew any of it. And I didn't understand everything he said. He was using slang. But I know he told them that there was going to be a test. And he told them, don't even worry about the test. I looked at one of my good students. He's fluent and he studies. This dude wrote poetry for practice in English, right? Poem was funny. I looked at him. He had a distressed look on his face. I looked at my worst student. He was smiling. I said, oh boy, I know something's bad now. So I started paying attention to the admin as he was talking. And he told them there's a makeup test for the ones that failed last time. Don't even worry about studying. Just show up. You can make up the test. Don't worry about studying. Just show up. He told them that. I thought he was joking. This nigga went into my next class, next hour, and told him the same damn thing. I said, Jamaican profanity clot. Like, you know, I had to censor it out for Jamaican profanity. So I asked one of my better students, and then I went and asked my best student from the last hour, hey man, what did this mother cuss word say? And he confirmed for me. He told the ones who failed that they could take the test again. They ain't even got to study. They're going to be all right. That's what he told them? Yeah. Oh, God. My good student was about to leave the program. One of my best was about to leave it. He said, that's not fair. I studied. I did the work. These little bastards didn't learn anything. And they still haven't learned in the last 4 months. And now they get a makeup test damn near for free just so they can be moved along. And you think it's just you. I've been going on for about an hour and 13 minutes. I'm sorry about that, but you all get the idea. And every so often, I got to come back and beat this point again in the hopes that my listeners will spread this message, because people keep thinking that it's just us, and it's not. Relatively speaking, I'd say we're pretty academically honest as a people, at least certainly in adulthood. Like at the very least, I would say that we do believe in growing the up, especially Black men. And this is the secret as to why you were so desired in many places. I don't just mean desired by women, but there are people here that look for Black male English teachers. Oh, my bad. I wasn't supposed to tell you that, was I? Yeah. There are folks here that look for Black male English teachers. They get offered positions. We get offered positions at times to head English departments if we're there long enough. Yeah, because we're thorough. So that little snot-nosed boy being raised in a stereotypical hood by a stereotypical single mom may or may not amount to much. But when you remove us from these influences, what do? When we become adults and we're on our own, and ain't nobody telling us that we ain't fit, just like our no good daddies. And no, I didn't curse just now. I used the spoonerism. But when that happens, what do? We excel. And quiet as it's kept, I've seen them Northern Nigerian cousins of ours do the same thing. Them cats excel, bro. But we thought that it was either just us black folks from America that were dysfunctional, or that it's just the black race as a whole that's dysfunctional. We thought that because a few Wyatt conservatives said something like this. And we believed it. So take this message and let folks know, no, it is not like what people think. We are not we're not the only dysfunctional or the most dysfunctional. We have no patents. We don't even take the lead in dysfunction. We never did. At no point did we do that. So I'm not going to hold y'all longer. I really do appreciate you all taking this time and coming through. And I mean it from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind when I thank you all for coming through on the Cash App. Especially MLR. I don't think he's in the chat now, but MLR, if you hear the replay, I mean it. I thank you, BGS. I appreciate that. Mr. Coleman, if you hear this, and shouts out again to Jay Cleveland Green, DK Milton, and Brandon for coming through on this one. To anybody here in the replay, I'm not going to ask for anything large. I'd much rather that most of you come through with 1 to 5, so that I can hear that notification sound on my phone. That's really where my addiction lies. And also, we want to piss off Doris. Don't forget that. Because Doris, even though all of us in here work some kind of job, even with the job market being what it is, Doris got the nerve to sit up and say, Cash App your ass to work, even though I just said in the video that I was about to go into work. And by the way, when I go to work, I'll make sure to contribute to an environment in which you are prized and Boom Chic and Bon Quisha are not prized or even valued. I'm not talking about sisters in general as a race. I'm not doing that to black women as a race, but I'm talking specifically about them gynocratic hyenas, no matter where they're from. I'm making sure to contribute to a situation in which they are not prized and sought after, or even normalized. Thank you for listening as always. Black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. And for those in the replay, punch the Cash App on the way out of the jet black aircraft. Thank you for flying again with me on Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. As always, gender justice forever.